Now, there are some strategies for this verbal de-escalation. They're not carved in stone. They're not absolutes. And there are no magic words. There are some things to avoid, as I said before, suggesting you put that down, or very directive, very commanding things. Don't do that. You should do this. That's not going to give you as much cooperation or that's going to get a more negative response, or almost a challenge response from the person, rather than saying, I can help you more if you would do this. It connotates the positive. There are no magic words, though, that are going to get you out of this situation, and will absolutely guarantee that this person won't act out. And you really need to know that. That's not what we're here to accomplish. There's no guarantees, but they're just things to avoid. Again, staying calm and controlled can diffuse an escalating situation. You know what is the most powerful tool, the most powerful word that you can use with them to start to calm them and to get their attention and to convey that you care? Anybody want to venture a guess? It's their first name. A person's first name is like music to their ears, even when they're angry. First, you should start the engagement by introducing yourself. Let them know what your first name is. Get them to address you by it, and you address them by their first name. It's amazing. It's like magic what this does. It has a very disarming effect. So remember that. That is a word you want to use. Let's look at some do's and don'ts in terms of verbal de-escalation techniques. Again, you want to remain calm. And the most important thing, I said this at the very beginning of the program, is listen. This is the most powerful tool in any confrontation, in any conversation. Listening. Most people are terrible at it. And the better you are at it, the better communicator you're going to become, and the more tools you're going to afford yourself in truly understanding the situation and getting this person to calm down. You want to try to isolate the situation, both in a nonverbal manner, physically isolating them from their audience. We talked about that earlier. And I also mean isolation in terms of figuring out what the root cause is. This may be just a symptom that you're dealing with, this complaint or this argument. What is that root cause? What's that underlying factor? Maybe you can glean from the conversation a hint at that. And if you can start to address maybe that, you're better off. Be aware of the nonverbal signals that we've already talked about. Establish those limits. Because if you let, they're like children. If you let them get away with something, then that becomes acceptable behavior or acceptable speech pattern. And they'll just continue to engage in it. And it's harder to get it back. So establish the limits often enough and make sure they're enforceable and reasonable, like we said before. And be consistent with those limits. Don't give them something and then waffle on it later, because then you lose your credibility as someone that's going to follow through on actions to be taken, perhaps even on their behalf. What you want to avoid is overreacting. And overreacting in what could be interpreted by this person as a threatening manner, because they're just going to get all that more defensive, and their way of getting defensive may be to turn aggressive on you. So it can't be overreaction or anything threatening. Don't let them lure you into a power struggle. Be confident in all the things that you've done to set the environment. Be confident in your ability as a person to engage someone and listen to them and care about them. And be confident that they don't have control of the situation. You do. Or you should. Don't make false promises. A lot of people will fall down, and it's a very slippery slope. You make false promises, and then you don't follow through. What have you done? Or you can't follow through. Well, I'll get my supervisor. How do you know your supervisor is available at that point? If you go leave the room and come back without the supervisor, you've made a false promise. You've lost some credibility. Your ability to maintain control in the situation is diminished. So don't do that. Don't, and this is horrible, don't fake attention. Leave the BlackBerry go. If the cell phone rings, leave it go. That's the worst thing you can do, is especially in an emotionally charged situation, suggest at all through answering a phone or appearing distracted that you're not really attentive or that you're just faking it. Because that will absolutely get you, will be met with negativity. Certainly don't challenge them. Remember, put your ego aside. This is not a who's going to win this. This is a how can we come to a peaceful resolution of this situation? And you're the one that has to control it and get to that end. Because this person is going to get there by themselves. You need to get them to that place. Don't do it in a challenging manner. Do it in a helping manner, an understanding manner, but at the same time, one that is a manner that protects yourself, should it get out of control quickly. And don't use jargon. Don't use industry jargon or jargon that's known to your position, acronyms, for example, because it confuses the person that may, remember, one of the underlying causes was confusion. They may already be confused. You start throwing jargon at them as a way that you can help them, and they're further confused, and it just really makes the situation worse. So use straight terminology that they can understand.